Good morning and welcome to another edition of Questions for Lawyers. I'm your host, Jeff Adelman, and the purpose of this show is to introduce all of you to different attorneys I know in the community and their specialties and kind of explain what they do. I know that sometimes there's an anxiety about contacting an attorney for the first time. We're trying to push all of that away, and I'm getting people on the air either in the Adelman studio or live via satellite as we have today to talk to you about it. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce to you one of the best Social Security disability attorneys I know, Mr. Joe Bilotta. Joe, thanks so much for spending the morning with us.
Thank you, Jeff, and I appreciate that introduction.
Absolutely. Well, if you don't mind, can you please let the audience know a little bit about your background and who you are?
Sure. Born and raised in New York on the border of the Bronx and Yonkers. I went to school there, practiced in Manhattan from 1989 to 1993. Then I moved down to Florida. I was a prosecutor in the Broward County State Attorney's Office for a few years, and then I went back into private practice in Palm Beach County. Both of my parents are blue-collar working class. My dad was a construction laborer. My mom worked in a school cafeteria. So my philosophy and my firm's philosophy is we help injured people. So my partners do workers' comp. I do all the Social Security disability, and we only represent injured people. So been here in Palm Beach County for going on over 20 years now.
What city are you located in?
Well, our office is in West Palm Beach. We also have an office in Stuart, Florida, but we handle claims going, up the coast, a few counties, and going down to Miami-Dade. So.
Right, and I've referred you people in Broward, Dade, all over
yeah.
the Tri-County area.
Yeah.
Now, Joe, you said that you worked as in the public defender's office. You've done a lot of different things. How did you get into Social Security disability claims? Because it's kind of a niche practice.
Well, when I first started with Joe Vassallo, who's retired now, his son Brian is with us, and Jeff Friedman. Joe is always of the mind, let's try and do different areas of the law because you never know how business is going to go in one area. And the workers' compensation cases, people who were permanently and totally disabled in the workers' compensation context, also had Social Security disability claims. So it was a natural flow to get into that area. So, took a couple of courses, read some books on it, and started doing it back in 1995.
With these Social Security disability claims, are these heard by a judge or a jury?
Well, there are various levels. When you get to the hearing level, that's by an administrative law judge. So if you want me to go through the levels now, I can.
Oh, yeah, if you want to go through that, that's fine.
Sure. I'll explain how we get to the hearing level. Okay. Someone files, and they're at an initial level where someone in an office somewhere reviews their case, and probably in 3 to 5 months they deny you an initial denial, because that's usually what Social Security does. Then we file for reconsideration. It goes to someone else's desk, another 3 to 5 months, and most likely they rubber stamp the denial.
Let me just stop you for 1 second.
Sure.
You say most cases get denied. So regardless of the injury, in your experience, when somebody applies for disability, they get denied most of the time. Is that right?
Yes, no matter how serious they are. I mean, it's a shame, but that's how the system is set up. The government basically wants you to give up and go away. I mean, that's really it. And a lot of people do, and then they don't refile again for a year or years, and it affects their past benefits. So that's correct.
So I think it's important for people to understand that it's almost like you have to have that step taken of being denied to move forward. It's kind of bass-ackwards, but that's how it is.
Exactly. And I tell my clients, I hope they deny you quicker so we can get to the hearing level in front of a judge, because that's where most people who deserve their benefits get their benefits.
So after, we're going to assume that somebody files, they're denied. What's the next step after that?
They're denied at the reconsideration level, and then we file for hearing in front of a judge. It's running about a year to a year and a half until we get to see a judge. And then I prepare them for the hearing. We review the electronic file. I'm able to sit at my desk and download their whole entire Social Security disability file. In the interim, we have had questionnaires drafted and done for their various physicians to be filled out concerning questions that I'll need to ask of a vocational expert or a doctor that the Social Security Administration might bring to a hearing. And what that means is as follows. Again, we have to prove that a person cannot do even sedentary duty, which is sitting at a desk like you and I are doing now and watching video surveillance cameras.
Mm-hmm.
You just pick up the phone. Hey, check aisle 5. Somebody's stealing candy bars. So a job as easy as that, we have to prove they can't do it. So we do questionnaires for their physicians, which ask questions such as, are they going to have problems focusing and concentrating either due to mental issues or the pain? Because, you know, if you have a toothache, you think about your toothache all day. You can't focus. Right. So same thing with neck pain, back pain, lupus, whatever it is, whatever the condition is. Then I use that information when we go into a Social Security hearing because they'll have a vocational expert. And a vocational expert is basically a human computer that the judge will give a hypothetical to. And the judge will say, assume I find that Mr. Smith can sit for 6 hours a day, stand for 2 hours, lift 20 pounds, has a high school diploma, did this past relevant work. What jobs are there that they can do in the national economy? And then the vocational expert will say, okay, DOT, Dictionary of Occupational Titles, job number 27, blah, 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 blah. Ticket taker, a widget maker, whatever it is. And then I will say, assume as Dr. Jones says, that this person is going to have to take 2 to 5 unscheduled breaks per day and be absent for 10 to 15 minutes during each of those breaks. Wouldn't you agree they're unemployable? And invariably, the vocational expert, no matter who it is, will say yes. In that case, they're unemployable. So we ask certain questions similar to that. They're different, but so we have many backup questions to ask the VE, and their response will be no, they're unemployable. In an attempt to convince the judge, well, judge, accept Dr. Jones's evidence and give my client benefits. And the rules of evidence are much more relaxed than they are in other arenas. We can have a letter from a judge or just submit the medical record, from a doctor, or just submit the medical records to the judge. We don't need to bring the doctor live or by phone. So,
well, I was going to ask you, who's eligible for Social Security disability benefits, but I think you've kind of gone through that. It's a pretty lengthy process, and you have to have proof from a doctor, and you have to, at the very least, have those records to show the administrative judge.
Exactly. And unfortunately, sometimes people don't have insurance, and it's been a year or two since they saw a doctor, which, they're caught between a rock and a hard place because the judges want to see that evidence. So I'll suggest, I know in Palm Beach County, we have the Palm Beach County Healthcare District, which people with lower income can get that. It's free healthcare. People can also apply for Medicaid. And sometimes I'll tell people, listen, even if you have to beg or borrow from a family member, at least go see your PCP or a doctor 4 times a year so I have some medical record, and they'll do a questionnaire for us so we have something to submit to the court.
You bring up a really good point. It's the same thing with personal injury cases. If you don't go and get treatment, the opposition will make some type of argument that, well, you're doing fine. You're not going to the doctor. So it's not just about going to the doctor. You need to make a record that you're actually suffering.
Exactly, because the client's testimony alone is not sufficient evidence of I feel neck pain, I have back pain, whatever. I can't do this, I can't do that. You need the medical evidence, and that's really the major problem that we see in a lot of these cases with no medical treatment or minimal. Because then Social Security will send you to one of their physicians, and there are some fair, there's people on the left, people on the right, people in the middle. There are some fair doctors, there are some patient-oriented doctors, and there are some super conservative doctors that Social Security will send you to, and you could go in with a cane, and they're going to say, well, you can lift, 50 pounds. So,
yeah. Well, could you tell us the distinction between Social Security disability and, say, supplemental security income, SSDI versus SSI, because there's some confusion about what those are, and I know you can explain that to us.
Sure. SSDI, or Social Security Disability, is for someone who has worked and paid sufficient credits into the system. it's too complicated to explain how the credits calculate. That can be found online if someone's interested. And let me just give the website for the government website. It's very simple: www.ssa.gov. A lot of questions can be answered there. But basically, if you have enough work credits in the system, then you are insured for disability purpose. That doesn't mean health insurance. It just means you could obtain the monetary benefits. And with SSD, as long as you have enough insurance credits, work credits, and you meet the medical requirements, then you obtain monetary benefits monthly and you get Medicare. Assets do not matter, meaning you can be married and your spouse is working, you could hit the Florida lottery, you will still get your SSD benefits. With SSI, however, that's for people who maybe children, or if they're overage, they don't have enough work credits, or they stopped working 10 years ago and their credits ran out, their date last insured. That usually runs out about 5 years after you stop working, and you have to prove you're disabled before your date last insured. Then they're just looking at SSI, or Supplemental Security Income Benefits. So we can go all the way through a hearing. I can win in front of a judge. The judge will issue a favorable decision that says, I find you're medically disabled as of this date and going forward. Then it goes to the administrative part of Social Security, and they'll have my client go down to their office, bringing bank records and checking account records, whatever, and then they'll determine whether or not they meet the financial requirements. So I have had situations where someone qualifies medically, but then they have too much in the way of assets, and they don't ultimately obtain any benefits.
And that's interesting with regards to like a personal injury claim. How can that affect somebody's SSDI or SSI benefits?
Well, any net settlement to them or judgment to them after fees and costs wouldn't affect their SSDI or Social Security disability claim. But if it's over $2,500, it will prevent them from getting SSI benefits. And I'm sure you know this because you do personal injury work. But what they would need to do is that money would have to go into a special needs trust. They couldn't actually take that money and put it in the bank, do whatever. It would disqualify them from getting SSI. So that's something that would need to be set up prior to obtaining you dispersing the funds to your client.
Who would set up a special needs trust for somebody?
There are attorneys around the state who do that. I mean, I have colleagues who, if someone asks me, I can refer them out to.
Like what kind of an attorney would do that?
That's usually someone who does elder law or estates and trusts, things like that.
Okay. What kind of benefits can somebody expect if they're granted SSDI benefits, SSI benefits? Does it vary, or is it a set amount from the government?
For SSI, Supplemental Security Income, each year it changes, and I believe for 2019 it's $740 a month. So, I mean, you hear that and how can anyone survive on that? And they can't.
That's for SSD?
No, SSI.
It's $714 a month.
740. Now, with SSD, Social Security Disability, everyone's different. So I don't know. Some people say, well, how much am I going to get? And I tell them it depends on what you paid into the system. And people may recall years ago, every year you'd get in the mail that fold out from Social Security. It would be green and white, and it would tell you if you became disabled now, you would get this. Here's what you would receive for retirement. Those are the numbers. People can go online to that website again, www.ssa.gov, or Google, how much would I obtain if I became disabled? And then you have to put in some information and find out what you would receive. I mean, I have people who receive $1,000 a month. I have people who receive $2,500 a month. It just varies with SSD because it's based upon how many years you work and how much you paid in over the years.
How many credits you have into the
right, system. How many credits and also how much you made and how much you paid. But with SSD, again, you get the Medicare benefits, whereas with SSI, you would receive Medicaid only. Some people can get both. If their SSD is so low, then they may also qualify for SSI at the same time. So you can get a little bit from SSD and a little bit from SSI. So I tell people to apply for both. It doesn't cost them anything.
If they're granted it, do they have to pay anything for the insurance?
Just your normal, what you would pay for the Medicare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Medicaid, you wouldn't have to, but Medicare,
Right.
you would have to pay
Medicaid.
to get that benefit.
Right. There's an amount deducted from your checks, monthly checks for the Medicare.
Okay. Would an inheritance have any effect on benefits, Joe?
Just the SSI. With SSD, they could inherit, and it's not going to affect them or the Medicare that they would get.
What would you suggest to somebody who believes that they have a disability and they need to make a claim? What would you tell them to start with?
First thing they need to do is file, because if they're not in the system and then they come see me and we send in our paperwork, they're going to bounce our paperwork and say this person doesn't have a claim. So the easiest way to get into the system is by going to www.ssa.gov, and you'll see when that pops up, apply for retirement, apply for disability. You just click on the apply for disability tile and follow the links, and they will need with them the names and addresses of their physicians, because they'll have to put all that information in, because Social Security will write to the doctors and obtain their medical records for them. Social Security also requests what's the date you first saw this doctor, what is the date of your last visit, when are you seeing them again. If they don't have those details, I tell people just put in a date as close as possible, because it doesn't matter, they're still going to get the records, and I don't want them to have to call every single doctor. When was I there 3 years ago? When was I last there? Again, the goal is to get in the system, get the application pending, because most likely they'll be denied and we want them to move along. Then they'll be given a confirmation number. So when they come see me, we have that confirmation number, and we send in our paperwork. Social Security is aware that there's an actual claim pending. And they can apply for SSD or SSI, and again, apply for both. Some people who either don't have access to the internet or are not comfortable with it, they can go down to their local Social Security office and wait online, which is a nightmare, or call your local office and they'll set up a phone interview and then send you the actual application to sign and send back afterwards. So online is the easiest, second phone interview.
How long can somebody expect the process to take on average?
On average, assuming benefits are awarded at the hearing level with the administrative law judge, 1.5 to 2 years, sometimes longer. People don't a long time. People don't want to hear this, but I've had cases going on for 8 to 10 years, and here's why. If we lose at the administrative hearing level, then we do a written appeal up to the appeals council in Virginia. No one has to go there. It's just done in writing. If the appeals council reverses the case, it goes back to the same judge for a redo. The only way you can get a different judge is if you have that same judge reversed twice, or if you can show they were somehow biased or prejudiced against you. If we lose at the appeals council level, a complaint has to be filed in federal court against the Social Security Administration. And then you have a federal judge make a ruling. If they reverse it, it goes back down to the appeals council, who then sets a new hearing. I've had cases go up to federal court twice and back down for a third hearing until benefits were finally given with the new judge. Sometimes you have a judge, they don't like being reversed, and then they're just adamant about denying a person for reasons beyond my comprehension. So,
well, while that is all going on, though, whether it's 1.5, 2 years, or longer, does the person making the claim, when do the benefits start? Do they get any back pay from when they filed the actual claim?
Yes, they will. Social Security will go back for SSD benefits. They'll go back and pay 1 year prior to the time the initial claim was filed. So if someone filed in 2016, they'll go back to 2015, assuming the disability began during that 1 year. If the disability began 3 years before, they're only going to go back 1 year from the date of filing. So the first they'll go back is 1 year from the date of filing. With SSI, they just pay you from the date of filing forward. So on those cases where they have gone up to federal court and back, or the appeals council, people are getting $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in a back check.
Joe, anybody who's watching this obviously has gotten quite an education as to the process, but I haven't asked the big question. How do you get paid on these claims? And I'm sure that's something that people are thinking about in their heads. How does the lawyer get paid for the work that you're doing, navigating through this very complicated system?
Sure. It's contingent, which is similar to the workers' comp we do, or as you do. You do personal injury, which means we are only paid if we're successful. And in the Social Security arena, the fees are set by the federal government. So it's whichever is less, 25% of the past due benefits up to a maximum fee of $6,000. So if someone is owed $4,000, Social Security will pay us a $1,000 fee and pay the person $3,000 in back benefits, and then the future monies are free and clear. There's no fee from that. If they are owed $40,000, 25% would be $10,000, but we max out at $6,000. So that's how it works.
I think that's important for people to know, that the maximum would be $6,000, even if the benefit is way more than what it would be on a percentage. I think that's important.
Correct. If the case has to go to federal court, there's an additional fee, but that's an hourly fee, and the federal government pays that fee for the time spent in federal court if we're successful.
Can somebody have a personal injury case and file for Social Security, disability, or SSI?
At the same time, yes. It wouldn't. The Social Security process wouldn't have any detrimental effect on the personal injury case in any way.
Okay, and you've seen that before with your own clients?
I've seen that, yes.
Okay. Well,
now, with workers' comp, there is an offset. If someone's getting permanent total disability benefits under the workers' comp system and they're getting permanent total from Social Security, then workers' comp usually takes an offset. So you can't get the full amount from workers' comp and the full amount from Social Security.
That's actually a very good distinction right there. What about private disability policies? If somebody's on disability, is there an offset for Social Security for that private disability policy?
Most policies usually have an offset. There are some out there that do not, and then it depends upon the policy language. It's just a contract issue, whether it's dollar for dollar offset or 50 cents on the dollar or whatever it is. But yes, with private policies, I've seen that also.
Okay, and most policies are like that. So if somebody has a policy, they should check that to see if the benefit would, if it would have to be subtracted from.
Exactly. If someone has a policy, usually when it's through an employer where they take it out of your pay, those policies usually have that offset. And I will tell you that most insurance companies send questionnaires out every year. Have you filed for disability? Some require you to file for disability. So I have had clients come to me saying, well, I'm getting private disability through my policy, and they wanted me to file for Social Security disability. So, but yes, because they don't want to get into a situation where they're getting benefits from both, and 3 and 4 years down the line, a light bulb goes off over the insurance adjuster's head somewhere and says, hey, you owe us $50,000. We've been paying you for 5 years and never took an offset. So,
well, Joe, I can't thank you enough for being with us this morning. If anybody has any questions about Social Security, disability, or SSI, how can they reach you?
Sure. Our office is in West Palm Beach, and our number is 561-471-2800. And again, I work out of the West Palm office, but if there are people up north, they can go to the Stewart office. We could sign them up there. Or they could just Google my name, Joseph Bilotta, Bilotta, and look at our website. So,
well, again, thank you, Joe, for being with us today. I appreciate all of you that are listening or watching live on Facebook. Our next show is going to be in October. We're going to have April Martindale, who does copyright and trademark law. So it should be very interesting. I have not had anybody on the show doing those areas of law, and I don't know that many people that do them. They're kind of like the creme de la creme of law in terms of specialty. I'm sure you don't know too many as well, Joe.
Right. You have to take another bar for that. Who wants to do that, right?
Exactly. So she will be on, and I'm really looking forward to that. If you have any questions after the show, my name is Jeff Adelman, and I can always be reached at 954-341-2777 or email me at jeff@adelmanlawyers.com. Thank you for watching, listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Take care.